She was kneeling in the rain at 2 a.m., holding a bleeding child who wasn't hers, when the most dangerous man in Busan stepped out of the darkness and said her full name, a name she'd hidden for years. Min Seo, 29 and exhausted, had spent the evening searching Jigalchi Market's back alleys for Jiwoo, a 7-year-old autistic boy from her community center who'd vanished during a field trip. He shouldn't have known her name. He shouldn't have been there. And he definitely shouldn't have looked at the trembling child in her arms like he was seeing his own soul shatter. "You have 30 seconds to decide," he'd said, rain dripping from his black coat. "Come with me and the boy lives. Run, and you'll both be dead by sunrise." While I tell you this story, one that will make you feel many emotions, click the subscribe button. It's the only way to support us. And thank you. Min Seo had learned to carry weight before she learned to read. At 6 years old, she became a mother to her 3-year-old brother Sungmin, the day their actual mother walked out the door with a suitcase and a new boyfriend's phone number. Sungmin didn't speak, didn't make eye contact, would scream if the morning routine changed by 5 minutes. Their father worked double shifts at the shipyard and came home smelling like soju and regret. So Min Seo learned. She learned about sensory issues and meltdown triggers and how to make a meal from rice and kimchi that would last 3 days. She learned to sleep 4 hours a night and still smile at school. She learned that asking for help meant admitting you were broken, and broken things got thrown away. 23 years later, she still hadn't unlearned any of it. She worked at Hanul Community Center in Busan's Gamcheon district, teaching children with special needs. Unpaid. Barely surviving on part-time convenience store shifts and the cheap studio apartment she shared with Sungmin, now 26 and working at a supported employment bakery. Every one she saved went into a coffee can labeled "Our School." Someday, she told herself, someday she'd open a real inclusive school. Free tuition, trained staff, safety, dignity. But someday kept getting pushed back by reality. This week, reality wore the face of Lee Dong-hyun, a local gang enforcer who'd been circling the community center like a shark smelling blood. "This neighborhood's changing," he'd told her 3 days ago, blocking the center's entrance with his body. "Property values going up. Your little charity project here, it's in the way. We have a lease," Min Seo said, keeping her voice steady even though her hands shook. "Leases can be broken." He smiled with too many teeth. "Accidents happen. Kids get hurt. You understand?" She understood perfectly. That night, she'd prayed for the first time in years, not to God, because she wasn't sure he listened to people like her, but to the universe, to fate, to anything that might care. "Just let me keep them safe," she whispered into her pillow. "I don't need to be happy. I just need them to be safe." The universe answered 48 hours later. Jiwoo disappeared during their Friday field trip to Jigalchi Fish Market. One moment, he was holding Min Seo's hand, fascinated by the octopus tanks. The next, he was gone, vanished into the crowd of tourists and fishmongers like smoke. Min Seo's heart stopped. She searched for 6 hours, called the police, who took a report and did nothing, called Jiwoo's grandmother, who sobbed into the phone, searched every alley, every stall, every corner of the market district until her voice was raw from screaming his name. At midnight, a fish seller pulled her aside. "Stop looking in the market," the old woman whispered. "I saw men take a boy, dark van. They went toward the port warehouses." "What men?" "The kind you don't ask about." Min Seo should have called the police again, should have gone home, should have protected herself. Instead, she ran toward the warehouses alone, because no one had protected Sungmin when he was small and vulnerable, because she'd spent her whole life watching people turn away from children who needed help, because she knew, in her bones, in her blood, that if she didn't find Jiwoo tonight, she never would. The warehouse district was a maze of corrugated metal and shadows. She found Jiwoo in the 4th building she checked, unconscious in a locked room with 2 other children, all 3 with medical tape over their mouths. She was trying to break the lock with a rusted pipe when the gunshot came. The bullet hit the doorframe 6 inches from her head. Min Seo grabbed Jiwoo, the smallest, the one who needed her most, and ran. She didn't see who was shooting, didn't see how many, just ran with a 7-year-old boy in her arms, his dead weight heavier than anything she'd ever carried. She made it 2 blocks before Jiwoo started bleeding. The bullet had grazed his shoulder, not life-threatening, but terrifying. So much blood soaking through his shirt while he stayed eerily silent, his autism making him unable to process or express the pain. Minseo collapsed in an alley behind a shuttered restaurant. The rain starting to fall, her phone dead, her options gone. She held Jiwoo and cried. "I'm sorry," she whispered to him, to God, to herself. "I'm so sorry. I tried so hard." That's when she heard the footsteps, slow, deliberate, expensive shoes on wet pavement. Minseo looked up and saw death walking toward her in a black coat. Kang Tae-jin had killed 9 men in his lifetime. He remembered each one. Their names, their faces. The exact moment their eyes changed from fear to nothing. He didn't enjoy it. That was the difference between him and the animals he'd eliminated from Busan's underworld. He killed with precision, with purpose, with the cold efficiency of a surgeon removing cancer. But he remembered. Tonight, he'd been planning to kill number 10, a human trafficker named Park who'd been stealing children from poor neighborhoods and selling them to networks across Southeast Asia. He'd tracked Park to the warehouse district, had his men in position, was 30 seconds from putting a bullet in Park's brain when he saw her, a woman, soaking wet, holding a bleeding child, kneeling in the alley like she was praying to gods who'd long since stopped listening. Tae-jin's world tilted. For one terrible second, he wasn't in Busan. He was 18 years old again, finding his sister's abandoned backpack in a parking lot, the blood on the strap still fresh. He was 17, coming home to an empty house. He was 16, watching Jiyeon walk to school, not knowing it would be the last time. The woman in the alley looked up, and Tae-jin saw his sister's fear in her eyes. He made a decision. "Song Minseo," he said, his voice cutting through the rain. 29 years old, lives at 402 Gudeok Building. Brother named Sung Min, works at Hanul Community Center teaching special needs children. Minseo's face went white. "How do you—" "The boy needs a hospital." Tae-jin moved closer, keeping his movements slow, non-threatening. "You need protection. I can provide both." "Who are you?" "Someone who's been watching you for 3 weeks." It was true. One of his information brokers had flagged her center as a target for Lee Dong-hyun's crew. Tae-jin didn't usually involve himself in street-level enforcement issues, but when he'd read Minseo's file, seen her history, her sacrifices, her stubborn refusal to abandon vulnerable children, something had shifted in his chest. She reminded him of Ji-yeon, not in looks, but in spirit. That fierce protectiveness, that inability to walk away from someone who needed help. He'd ordered his men to watch the community center, to make sure Dong-hyun didn't go too far. But then the trafficking ring had taken Jiwoo and everything had escalated. "I'm not going anywhere with you," Minseo said, but her voice shook. She was terrified and trying to hide it. Tae-jin crouched down, meeting her eyes at her level. "The men who took this boy work for a trafficking network that moves 50 children a year. They have your name now? Your address? Your brother's workplace." He paused. "You have 30 seconds to decide. Come with me and the boy lives. Run, and you'll both be dead by sunrise. You could be one of them. I could be. But I'm not the one who shot at you." Minseo looked at Jiwoo, whose breathing was shallow, whose small face was ghost pale. Tae-jin saw the exact moment she broke. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." He lifted Jiwoo from her arms with surprising gentleness, and Minseo watched as this dangerous stranger cradled the boy like he was made of glass. "Stay close to me," Tae-jin said. "Don't run, don't speak, just walk." A black car appeared at the alley entrance, one of his men, perfectly timed. Tae-jin helped Minseo into the back seat, then settled Jiwoo in her lap. He slid in beside them and gave his driver an address. "Where are we going?" Minseo asked. "Private clinic, doctor who doesn't ask questions." "I can't pay." "I'm not asking you to." The drive took 8 minutes. Minseo spent all of them studying the man beside her. He was probably mid-30s, with the kind of face that had been handsome before violence had carved it into something harder. Tattoos crept up his neck, traditional Korean dragons and phoenixes, the kind that signaled organized crime connections. But his hands were steady as he kept pressure on Jiwoo's wound, and his eyes, when they briefly met hers, held something she didn't expect. Grief. At the clinic, a woman in her 60s took Jiwoo without questions. Tae-jin stood outside the treatment room like a guard dog, while Minseo paced the waiting area. "He'll be fine," Tae-jin said after 20 minutes. Bullet barely grazed him. Clean wound. He'll need antibiotics and rest. How do you know? I've seen worse. That was probably true. Probably an understatement. When the doctor finally emerged, she confirmed Taijin's assessment. Jiwoo was sleeping, drugged with pain medication, his shoulder bandaged and stabilized. He can go home tomorrow, the doctor said, but whoever's after him will try again. Minseo's composure cracked. His grandmother can't protect him. She's 70. She lives in a ground floor apartment with locks that don't work. Then he comes with us, Taijin said. With us. You. Him. Until this is resolved. Resolved how? I eliminate the threat. Minseo stared at him. You mean kill them? I mean make sure they never touch another child. There was a long, terrible silence. Who are you? Minseo asked again, her voice breaking. Taijin's expression didn't change. Someone who's going to keep you alive. That's all you need to know. He walked away before she could argue, pulling out his phone to make calls that Minseo couldn't hear but knew were dangerous. She sank into a plastic chair and put her face in her hands. She'd prayed for protection. God had sent her a monster. Taijin's safe house was not what Minseo expected. She'd imagined something cold, industrial, sterile, threatening, a place where men planned violence and counted money stained with blood. Instead, she found herself in a renovated hanok on the outskirts of Busan, traditional Korean architecture updated with modern security systems and bulletproof windows. There were bookshelves, comfortable furniture, a kitchen that looked actually used. Guest rooms are upstairs, Taijin said, carrying the still sleeping Jiwoo. You'll stay in the one next to him. Bathrooms shared. Don't open the curtains. Don't go outside without telling me. How long? However long it takes. Minseo followed him upstairs, watching as he laid Jiwoo on a bed with the same careful gentleness he'd shown in the car. You're good with children, she said before she could stop herself. Taijin's shoulders tensed. I had a sister. Had? She disappeared when I was 17. Never found her body. The words were delivered flatly, emotionlessly, which somehow made them worse. I'm sorry, Minseo whispered. Don't be. It made me who I am. He left before she could respond, pulling the door closed with a soft click. Minseo sat beside Jiwoo, holding his uninjured hand, and tried not to think about what she'd gotten herself into. The first 3 days were surreal. Taijin was a ghost in his own house. He'd appear at meals, always bringing food, never eating much himself. He'd check on Jiwoo with clinical efficiency. He'd spend hours in a locked office making phone calls in a language Minseo suspected was only partially Korean. But he never threatened her, never leered, never made her feel unsafe in that particular way she'd learned to recognize in men. Instead, she felt trapped in amber, suspended, waiting, unable to move forward or back. Jiwoo woke up on day 2, confused and frightened until he saw Minseo. She spent hours soothing him, explaining in simple terms what had happened, helping him understand. Taijin watched from the doorway. He doesn't speak, he asked. Not verbally, he uses some sign language and picture cards, but mostly he communicates through behavior. What's his trigger? The question surprised her with its precision. Loud noises, sudden movements, changes in routine. Taijin nodded once, then disappeared. When he returned an hour later, he had visual schedules printed and laminated, showing Jiwoo's new daily routine with pictures and icons. Minseo stared at them. Where did you... I made a call. To who? Someone who knows about autism. He handed her the schedules and left. That night, Minseo found Taijin in the kitchen at 2 a.m., drinking tea and staring at his phone. Can't sleep, she asked. Don't usually. She poured herself water and stood awkwardly by the counter. Thank you for the schedules. Jiwoo was calmer today. Good. Silence stretched between them. Why are you helping us? Minseo finally asked. You said you've been watching me for weeks. Why? Taijin looked at her for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. Lee Dong-hyun works for a bigger network. They target vulnerable areas, places with poor people, disabled children, single mothers, easy prey. He set down his tea. You were on their list. But that doesn't explain why you care. Maybe I don't like predators. Everyone in your line of work is a predator. Then maybe I'm trying to be less of one. The honesty in his voice shocked her. What happened to your sister? Mincio asked softly. Taejin's jaw tightened. She was 14. Walked home from Hagwon one night. Someone grabbed her 2 blocks from our house. No witnesses, no evidence. Police did nothing because we were poor and she was nobody. So you became somebody. So I became someone who makes sure it doesn't happen again. Minseo understood then. The protection. The careful gentleness with Jiwoo. The way he watched her with something that looked like regret. He was trying to save his sister through them. I'm sorry you lost her, Minseo said. I'm sorry you lost your mother. She froze. How do you— I know everything about you, Song Minseo. Your mother left when you were 6. Your father drank himself to death 3 years ago. You raised your brother alone. You work 2 jobs and still barely eat. You dream of opening a school but never let yourself believe it's possible. Tears burned in her eyes. Stop. You pray to a god you don't trust. You think you're cursed? You think everyone you love will leave or die or need more than you can give. Stop. Taejin stood and moved closer. Not threatening, just present. You're wrong, he said quietly. You're not cursed. You're just strong enough that everyone else gets to be weak. Minseo's breath caught. That's not fair, she whispered. No, it's not. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. The touch was gentle, devastating. Minseo stepped back, her heart pounding. Don't what? Don't be kind to me. I can survive cruelty. I can't survive kindness. Something shifted in Taejin's expression. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. Then we're the same, he said. He left her standing in the kitchen, shaking and confused and feeling something she hadn't let herself feel in years. Hope? The 4th day, everything changed. Minseo woke to raised voices downstairs. She crept to the landing and saw Taejin arguing with 3 men in expensive suits. His lieutenants, she guessed. You're losing control, one said. The park network is pushing back. They want the woman and the boy. They're not getting them. Then we go to war. Over what? Some teacher and a random kid? Taejin's voice dropped to something deadly. I said no. The men are questioning your judgment, Hyungnim. This isn't like you. Then maybe I'm changing. One of the men laughed bitterly. You can't change. None of us can. We're already ghosts. After they left, Minseo found Taejin on the back porch, smoking a cigarette with shaking hands. I'm ruining your life, she said. You're not. They're right. You're losing control because of us. Taejin crushed out the cigarette. Do you know what control has cost me? 20 years of blood. 20 years of looking at myself in the mirror and seeing a stranger. 20 years of telling myself it's necessary, it's justice, it's protecting the vulnerable. But really, it's just revenge that never ends. He turned to face her. You make me feel human again, he said. Like maybe I'm not just a weapon people point at their enemies. Like maybe I could be someone who builds instead of destroys. Minseo's throat tightened. I'm not your redemption. I know. I can't fix you. I know that too. Then what do you want from me? Taejin moved closer, his presence overwhelming but not threatening. I want you to trust me, he said. Just for a little while, let me protect you. Let me do one good thing in my worthless life. Your life isn't worthless. Then prove it. Stay. Minseo knew it was dangerous. Knew she was falling for something impossible. Knew this man was poison wrapped in poetry. But she was so tired of being strong. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. Taejin's eyes closed briefly, relief flooding his features. When he opened them again, something had changed between them. Some invisible line crossed that neither could uncross. Thank you, he said quietly. That night, Minseo lay awake thinking about monsters and redemption and the terrifying possibility that maybe some people could change. Maybe even ghosts could become human again. The attack came on day 7. Minseo was reading to Jiwoo in the living room when the first window exploded inward, glass raining down like deadly snow. Taejin was on her in seconds, covering both of them with his body as gunfire tore through the house. Basement! He shouted to his men. Get them to the basement! But the basement door was blocked, 3 men in ski masks flooding through it, cutting off their escape. Taejin moved like violence personified. Minseo had never seen someone fight before, real fighting, not movie choreography. It was ugly and brutal and terrifyingly efficient. He broke a man's arm with one twist, put another on the ground with an elbow strike that made a sound like a watermelon cracking, disarmed the third and used his own gun to shoot him in the leg, all in under 20 seconds. "Go!" he shouted at Minseo. "Back door! Now!" She grabbed Jiwoo and ran, her feet crunching on broken glass, her arms burning from carrying the boy's weight. They made it to the back garden when she heard Taejin scream. Minseo turned and saw him on the ground, blood spreading across his white shirt, a fourth attacker standing over him with a knife. Something inside her snapped. She grabbed a garden spade leaning against the wall and swung it with every ounce of strength she had, hitting the attacker in the head with the flat side. He went down hard. Taejin stared at her, blood leaking between his fingers where he clutched his side. "You should have run," he gasped. "Shut up and get up." She helped him to his feet, Jiwoo clinging to her back like a monkey, and they stumbled through the garden to where Taejin's car was hidden behind a false wall. His driver was already waiting, engine running. They peeled out as more gunfire erupted behind them. "Hospital," Minseo said. "No. Safe house number 2. "You're bleeding?" "I've had worse." "Taejin, I said no hospitals." His voice was harsh with pain. "They'll be watching hospitals. We go to ground. Now." Safe house number 2 was an apartment above a restaurant in Gwangali Beach District. Smaller, more exposed, but unknown to Taejin's enemies. Minseo spent 3 hours stitching his side closed with supplies from a medical kit, her hands steady despite her terror. "You're good at this," Taejin said through gritted teeth. "I had to learn. Sungmin used to hurt himself during meltdowns. Hospitals ask too many questions. Everything you've learned has been survival. Yes, you deserve better." Minseo tied off the last stitch. "So do you." That night, Jiwoo slept between them on the pull-out couch, a small buffer against the tension crackling in the air. "They knew where we were," Taejin said quietly. "Someone told them. Your men. Maybe. Or someone close to them." He stared at the ceiling. "There's a traitor in my organization. Can you find them?" "I already know who it is." Minseo turned to look at him. "Then why haven't you—" "Because he's my oldest friend." Taejin's voice was hollow. "We started together. Built everything together. He saved my life in Daegu in 2019. And now he's selling you out. His sister needs cancer treatment. Experimental. Expensive. The park network offered to pay." Minseo's heart broke for both of them. "What will you do?" "What I have to. There has to be another way." "There isn't." "Taejin." He turned to face her, his eyes dark with grief and inevitability. "This is my world, Minseo. People betray. People die. There are no clean choices." "Then get out." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I've already damned. The only thing I can do now is make sure my damnation means something. Protect people like you. Save children like Jiwoo. Go to hell knowing I kept some light in the world." Tears slid down Minseo's cheeks. "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. It's the truth." She reached across Jiwoo's sleeping form and took Taejin's hand. "Then I'll be sad with you," she whispered. He squeezed her fingers, his grip desperate. They fell asleep like that, connected across a small boy. 2 broken people trying to protect something innocent in a world that devoured innocence like candy. The next morning, Taejin was gone. Minseo woke to find a note on the counter. "Stay here. Don't leave. I'm ending this." She crumpled the paper in her fist, fear and fury warring in her chest. He was going to kill his friend, going to eliminate the traitor, going to do what he thought was necessary. And she couldn't stop him. The hours crawled past like years. Jiwoo sensed her anxiety and became agitated, rocking and humming, his hands flapping with stress. Minseo did her best to soothe him, but inside she was screaming. "Come back," she prayed. "Please come back." At sunset, Taejin returned. He was covered in blood, not his own, she didn't think, and his eyes looked dead. "Is it done?" Minseo asked. "Yes." "Did you—" "I gave him a choice. Leave the country or die. He chose to leave." Relief flooded through her. "You let him go?" I paid for his sister's treatment, gave him money, told him if I ever see him again, I'll kill him. Tae-jin sat down heavily, his head in his hands. I'm weak. You're human. Same thing, in my world. Min-seo knelt in front of him, forcing him to look at her. Thank you for being weak. Something cracked in his expression. Vulnerability. Raw and terrible. I'm going to get you killed. He whispered. Both of you. My weakness is going to get you killed. Then we'll die together. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. I'm not leaving you. You should. I know, but I'm not. Tae-jin pulled her close, his forehead pressing against hers, his breath ragged. I don't deserve you, he said. I don't deserve you either. They stayed like that for a long moment, two people who'd survived by never needing anyone, finally admitting they needed each other. But the peace didn't last. 2 days later, Tae-jin got a message that changed everything. He read it 3 times, his face going pale. What? Min-seo asked. The park network. They're not just trafficking children. Then what? They're selling them to a medical research facility, illegal organ harvesting, experimental drugs. His hand shook. Jiwoo wasn't taken randomly. They specifically targeted autistic children. Horror washed over Min-seo. Why? Because no one looks for them as hard, because their families are often poor, because society has already decided they're worth less. She felt sick. We have to stop them. I am. But there's something else. Tae-jin looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. They have records. Names and dates of every child they've taken in the last 20 years. Min-seo's breath caught. Your sister? I don't know. But maybe I can finally know what happened to her. Then we go get those records. It's a trap. They're using the information as bait. Then we spring the trap. Min-seo. Those records could save lives, could bring families closure, could stop these monsters forever. She grabbed his arms. We have to try. Tae-jin stared at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, he said. But if anything goes wrong, you run. You take Jiwoo and you run, and you don't look back. I'm not leaving you. That's not a request. It's the condition for me doing this. Min-seo wanted to argue, but she saw the steel in his eyes and knew she'd lose. Fine, she lied. They both knew she was lying, and neither of them cared. The facility was in Yangsan, 40 minutes north of Busan, an industrial park masquerading as a pharmaceutical research company. Tae-jin spent 2 days planning the raid with surgical precision. His remaining loyal men, backup routes, contingencies for every variable. But Min-seo knew the truth. No plan survived contact with reality. I want to help, she told him the night before. No. I'm not asking permission. Min-seo, they targeted vulnerable children. Children like Jiwoo, like Sungmin, like every kid I've ever taught. Her voice shook with fury. I'm not sitting in a safe house while you risk your life. You don't know how to fight? Then teach me what I need to know. Tae-jin looked at her like she was insane. You can't learn combat in one night. I don't need combat. I need to not be helpless. He stared at her for a long moment, then sighed in defeat. Fine, but you follow my orders exactly. No heroics. No improvising. Deal. He spent 3 hours teaching her basics. How to fall without breaking bones, how to create distance from an attacker, where to strike to disable rather than kill. You're naturally aggressive, he noted as she practiced elbow strikes on a heavy bag. Good. Use your anger. I have a lot of it. I've noticed. At 2 m, she found him on the balcony, staring at the city lights. Can't sleep? She asked. Never before operations? She stood beside him, their shoulders almost touching. Are you scared? She asked. Terrified. Of dying? Of failing you. Min-seo's throat tightened. You won't. You don't know that. I know you. Tae-jin turned to face her, his expression raw. You don't, though. Not really. You know the version of me that exists around you. You don't know the things I've done, the people I've hurt, the choices I've made that can never be unmade. Tell me, then, Min-seo. Tell me. If we're doing this tomorrow, if we might die, then I want to know all of you, not just the parts you think I can handle. So he told her. About the gang war in Daegu that left 17 dead. About the human trafficking ring he'd dismantled by burning their headquarters to the ground, with people inside. About the corrupt police chief he'd bribed, the politicians he owned, the blood money that funded every aspect of his empire. I'm not a good man, he finished. I've never been a good man. I'm just a monster who occasionally points his teeth at worse monsters. Mincio listened to all of it without flinching. When he finished, she said quietly, My mother didn't just leave. She stole our savings first. $8,000 my father had been saving for 5 years. She took it and disappeared, and we lost our apartment because of it. Mincio, when Sungmin was 12, he ran away during a meltdown. I found him 6 hours later near the highway. He'd almost walked into traffic 3 times. I was 17. I grabbed him and shook him and screamed at him that he was going to get himself killed, that I couldn't watch him every second, that I was tired of being his mother. She took a shaky breath. Where he cried himself to sleep that night. I heard him through the wall, and I didn't go to him. I just lay in bed hating myself and hating him and hating our mother for leaving us and our father for dying. Taejin's hand found hers in the darkness. We're both monsters then, he said softly. Or we're both just human. I don't know if there's a difference. Maybe there isn't. They stood in silence, holding hands, 2 people who'd been broken by life and violence and love that always came with conditions. If I die tomorrow, Taejin said, I want you to know, you made me believe I could be better. Even if I never actually become better, you made me believe it was possible. Tears burned in Minseo's eyes. If I die tomorrow, I want you to know, you were the first person who ever made me feel like I deserved to be protected, like my life mattered outside of what I could give other people. Your life matters. So does yours. Taejin pulled her close, and Mincio buried her face in his chest, breathing in his scent, gunpowder and expensive cologne, and something indefinably him. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Do what? Need someone. Trust someone. Let someone carry half the weight. Then we'll figure it out together. What if we don't survive tomorrow? Then we won't die alone. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't hopeful. It was just honest. And somehow, that made it perfect. Mincio pulled back enough to look at him. Kang Taejin, Busan's Ghost King, most dangerous man in the Southern Territories. Song Mincio, protector of the vulnerable, strongest woman I've ever met. If we survive this, when we survive this, stay with me. Not as a protector, not as a guardian, just stay. Taejin's eyes widened slightly. You're asking me to... I'm asking you to try. Try being human. Try being happy. Try believing that maybe monsters can become men if someone loves them enough to make it possible. You love me? I think I might. That's insane. I know. I'm a terrible choice. I know that too. I'll probably ruin your life. Then ruin it. I'm tired of safety. Taejin laughed, a broken, desperate sound, and kissed her. It was fierce and gentle and tasted like goodbye and hello and every impossible promise they were too scared to speak out loud. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Mincio said, Tomorrow, we save those children, we get those records, we end this. Tomorrow, we save everyone. Taejin agreed, including ourselves. They went inside to prepare for war. Neither of them slept. Neither of them expected to. The raid began at 4 a.m., in that liminal space between night and dawn when the world feels suspended and unreal. Taejin's team hit the facility from 3 directions simultaneously, north, south, and west. He kept Mincio close, her smaller frame shadowed by his body as they moved through darkened corridors. The facility was a maze, sterile hallways, locked doors, the chemical smell of industrial cleaning products overlaying something worse. Death. Old death. Covered up but never quite gone. They found the children first. 12 of them, locked in rooms that looked like hospital wards but felt like prisons, ages ranging from 5 to 14, some awake and terrified, others sedated, hooked to IVs. Mincio's hands shook as she helped Jisoo, an autistic girl, disconnect her IV line. It's okay, she whispered. I'm a teacher. I'm going to get you out. Behind them, Taejin's men worked with surprising gentleness, lifting drugged children, wrapping them in blankets, speaking in soft voices, these violent men showing the only mercy they had left. They'd almost reached the exit when the alarm screamed to life. "Move!" Tae-jin shouted. They ran, his men carrying children, Min-seo holding Ji-soo's hand, everyone racing toward the extraction point. Gunfire erupted behind them. One of Tae-jin's men went down, then another. "Keep going!" Tae-jin returned fire, his body positioned between the children and the threat. "Get them out!" Min-seo wanted to stay, to fight, to do something, but she had Ji-soo clinging to her, terrified and nonverbal, and a dozen other children who needed her to be their anchor. So she ran. They made it to the vehicles, got the children loaded. Min-seo counted heads frantically. 12 children. 6 of Tae-jin's men. "No, Tae-jin. We have to go back," she told the driver. "Boss's orders. We extract the children first. Then extract them without me." She was out of the car before he could stop her, running back toward the facility against a tide of Tae-jin's men retreating under heavy fire. She found him in the records room, blood streaming from a cut above his eye, fighting 3 men while trying to download files from a computer. "Min-seo, what the hell? I told you. I'm not leaving you." She grabbed a chair and swung it at the nearest attacker. Not graceful, not skilled, but effective enough that he stumbled. Tae-jin finished the other 2 with brutal efficiency, then grabbed the USB drive from the computer. "Got it," he said. "Now run." They ran together, hand in hand, through corridors filling with smoke as fire suppression systems activated. Through the lobby where bodies lay, Park's men, neutralized by Tae-jin's team. They were 10 feet from the exit when Park himself appeared, gun raised. "You destroyed everything," he said, his voice shaking with rage. 20 years of work. "You sold children," Tae-jin replied coldly. "You deserve worse than destruction." "And you're a saint? You've killed more people than I have." "Probably, but I never hurt children." Park's finger tightened on the trigger. Min-seo moved without thinking, stepping between them. "Don't," she said. Both men stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "Move," Park snarled. "No. I'll shoot through you. Then you'll have to shoot through me." "Min-seo." Tae-jin's voice was strangled. "It's over," Min-seo said to Park, keeping her voice steady despite her terror. "Your network is exposed. The children are safe. You can run or you can die. Those are your only options. I choose option 3. He pulled the trigger. Time slowed. Tae-jin moved fast as violence, his body slamming into Min-seo's, taking them both to the ground as the bullet passed overhead. Return fire came from the doorway, one of Tae-jin's men, precise and lethal. Park dropped. The silence after gunfire is always louder than the shots themselves. Tae-jin and Min-seo lay tangled on the floor, both breathing hard, both alive. "You stupid, brave, insane woman," Tae-jin whispered. "You're welcome." He kissed her there, among the blood and smoke and death. Kissed her like she was the only good thing he'd ever known. When they finally pulled apart, his eyes were wet. "I can't lose you," he said. "Then don't. Stay, live, be with me. I don't know how. We'll learn together." They got to their feet, supporting each other, and walked out of the facility into the sunrise. Behind them, the building burned. In front of them, a future neither had dared imagine. Later, at a safe house outside the city, after the children had been handed over to legitimate authorities with anonymous tips about the facility and the trafficking network, Tae-jin opened the USB drive. Min-seo watched as he scrolled through files, names, dates, locations. 20 years of horror documented with bureaucratic precision. His hand stopped on one file. Ji-yeon, he breathed. Kang, Ji-yeon. Taken August 15, 2015. Min-seo moved closer, reading over his shoulder. The file contained medical records, DNA samples, photographs, and a location. Transferred to Jinhae Medical Center, April 2016. Adopted by Dr. Kim Sang-woo and family, June 2016. Name changed to Kim Na-ri. "She's alive," Min-seo whispered. Tae-jin made a sound like his soul was breaking. "She's alive. She's been alive this whole time. Can you find her?" "Yes." "Then let's find her together." He looked at Min-seo with an expression of such raw gratitude it hurt to witness. "How are you real?" he asked. "The same way you are, broken, terrified, and refusing to give up." They spent the next 3 hours cross-referencing records, making calls, pulling strings, and at 3:00 p.m., they were standing outside a house in Changwon, watching a 23-year-old woman work in her garden, completely unaware that her past was about to collide with her present. "Do you want me to come with you?" Min Seo asked. Taejin was silent for a long moment. "Yes," he finally said. "I don't think I can do this alone." They walked to the gate together. When Ji-yeon, Na-ri, looked up and saw Taejin's face, something flickered in her expression. Recognition, maybe. Or just the ghost of a memory. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm looking for someone," Taejin said, his voice shaking. "A girl who disappeared a long time ago. I think you might be her." Nari's hand went to her throat, touching a small scar Min Seo hadn't noticed before. "I had a brother once," she said slowly. "At least, that's what they told me. But I don't remember him. I don't remember anything before I was 14. "Your brother's name was Taejin," Min Seo said gently. "He's been looking for you for 9 years. Nari's eyes filled with tears. "I had a brother named Taejin." "You have a brother named Taejin," Taejin corrected, his voice breaking. "If you want him." They stood in the garden, 3 feet apart, separated by 9 years of trauma and loss and grief. Then Nari crossed the distance and hugged him. "I don't remember you," she sobbed. "But I remember feeling safe once. I remember someone who made me feel safe." Taejin held his sister like she might disappear again, his shoulders shaking. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I promise. You're safe now." Min Seo stepped back, giving them space, her own tears falling freely. This was what redemption looked like. Not dramatic, not perfect. Just 2 people finding each other in the wreckage and choosing to rebuild. Later, after tearful introductions to Nari's adoptive family, after promises to take things slow and stay in touch, after Taejin had held his sister's hand for an hour without speaking, he and Min Seo drove back to Busan. "Thank you," he said as they pulled up to her apartment building. "For what?" "For making me believe I deserved to find her. For making me human enough to recognize her when I did." Min Seo leaned over and kissed his cheek. "You were always human. You just forgot. Will you help me remember? Every day, even though I'm still a criminal." "Are you?" Taejin was quiet for a long moment. "I'm working on not being. Then I'll work on it with you." He pulled her close, and they sat in the car as the sun set over Busan, 2 broken people becoming whole together. "I love you," Taejin said. "I don't know if I'm supposed to say it yet, or if it's too soon, or if it's even true, but I feel something, and I think it might be love." Min Seo laughed through her tears. "I love you too, even though you're dramatic and dangerous and probably going to give me a heart attack. Probably. Stay anyway. Okay. Forever. Okay." It was that simple. And that complicated. And that perfect. 3 years later, the building stood in Gamcheon Culture Village, colorful murals covering its walls, a sign above the door reading, "Hanul Inclusive Academy, where every child belongs." Min Seo stood in the doorway of her classroom, watching 23 children work on art projects. Autistic children, children with Down syndrome, children with cerebral palsy, children the world had tried to discard, now thriving under her care and the care of her small but dedicated staff. Ji-woo was 12 now, tall and serious, helping younger students with their paintings. He still didn't speak verbally, but he communicated through sign and picture cards and the most beautiful art Min Seo had ever seen. Sungmin worked in the school's kitchen, preparing lunches with the methodical precision that made him so good at his job. He was living independently now, in an apartment Taejin had helped him find, visiting twice a week to cook for the students. The school had opened 18 months ago, funded by a mysterious anonymous donor, though everyone knew it was Taejin, liquidating parts of his empire to build something clean. He was standing at the edge of the room now, watching her work, looking impossibly domestic in jeans and a sweater instead of his usual black suit. He'd left the underworld slowly, carefully, transferring power to lieutenants he trusted, while maintaining just enough influence to keep his people safe. It wasn't a clean break, couldn't be, given what he'd been, but it was genuine. These days, he ran a security consulting firm, legitimate, mostly. He still had connections, still knew things he shouldn't, still moved through the world with that aura of controlled danger. But he came home to her every night, and that was enough. "How's your day?" he asked as the final bell rang and children scattered to their parents and caregivers. "Perfect," Minseo said. "Exhausting, chaotic, and perfect." "Same." They'd gotten married 6 months ago. A small ceremony on Gwangali Beach with Nari as Taijin's best woman, and Sungmin walking Minseo down the aisle. Nari came by the school once a week to teach music therapy. She was in graduate school now, studying psychology, determined to help other survivors piece together their fractured pasts. She and Taejin were slowly rebuilding their relationship. It was complicated, full of gaps and scar tissue, but it was real. "I have news," Taejin said as they locked up the school. "Good or bad?" "Good. The Park Network's last remaining members were arrested in Bangkok. It's over. Really over." Minseo sagged with relief. "All of them. Everyone who mattered. The children they took are being repatriated. The facility is being torn down." He paused. "We did it." "You did it?" "We did it together." They walked home through the narrow streets of Gamcheon hand in hand, watching the sunset paint the colorful houses in shades of gold and pink. "Do you ever miss it?" Minseo asked. "The power? The control? Being feared?" Taejin considered the question seriously. "Sometimes, usually around 3 a.m, when I can't sleep, and I remember what it felt like to be untouchable. And then I remember what it felt like to be untouchable but alone. And I choose this." He squeezed her hand. "I choose you. I choose teaching Jiwoo how to paint. I choose Sunday dinners with Nari. I choose being human, even though it's harder. Especially because it's harder." They reached their apartment, the same one Minseo had lived in alone for so many years, now filled with Taijin's books and clothes and the evidence of a shared life. That evening, after dinner, Minseo found Taijin on the balcony, staring at the city like he used to. But this time, he wasn't alone in the dark. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, and he leaned back into her embrace. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How strange it is to be happy. How foreign it feels. How scared I am that it'll be taken away." "It won't. You don't know that. I know that we survived everything else. We'll survive happiness, too." Taejin turned to face her, his expression soft in the moonlight. "I spent 20 years being a ghost," he said. "I walking through the world without living in it, being powerful but never present. Then you made me real again. You made yourself real. I just witnessed it. No, you believed it was possible. That's what changed everything." Minseo pulled him down for a kiss. Gentle, familiar, full of promises they'd already kept and promises still being made. "I love you," she said. "My monster, my man, my Taijin. I love you too, my savior, my strength, my Minseo." They stood together on the balcony, looking out over Busan's lights. Two people who'd been broken and alone finding wholeness in each other. It wasn't perfect. There were hard days. Days when Taijin's past came calling. Days when Minseo's trauma made it hard to breathe. Days when they fought or cried or wondered if they'd made the right choice. But they were together. And together, they were enough. In the morning, Minseo would return to her school. Taejin would go to his office. Nari would come for dinner. Sungmin would bake his famous chocolate cake. Life would continue. Ordinary, beautiful, human. A life neither of them had thought they deserved. A life they'd fought and bled and changed to earn. A life that proved monsters could become men, and broken women could find wholeness. And redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about building a future despite it. 3 years ago, Minseo had knelt in the rain with a bleeding child and thought she was dying. Instead, she'd been saved. By a ghost who became human. By love that shouldn't have worked but did. By the radical belief that maybe, just maybe, everyone deserved a second chance. Even monsters. Especially monsters. Because monsters who chose to become men were the bravest of all. If you made it to the end of this story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. And click the yellow bell to subscribe to the channel and support us. Keep the adventure going by clicking on the suggested video on your screen.